we'll begin to speak about one of the most, when you ask somebody when I say Purim, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Many people, unfortunately, the first thing is going to be alcohol. So if you think about it, Purim, drunk. So let's speak a little bit about alcohol. Maybe we'll touch a little bit about alcoholism. But alcohol is a very, very hot topic. It's a very, it's one of the things that people actually look forward to. There are many alcoholics that finally feel like they're at home, that one day a year they're not out of the ordinary. They could actually drink themselves drunk till almost death. So we have to understand this whole idea about alcohol in Judaism. It's very interesting because you look at alcohol, you look at Judaism, those things don't really seem to go, hand in hand together. They seem to be very different. And especially if you look at it from the secular world. And I think it's Islam. If you drink, you're not allowed to drink alcohol in Islam. I think it's it's not, right? It's not allowed. It's like very frowned upon. It's like, there are certain things but yet Judaism, not only do we allow it, we embrace it and we encourage it, and we even actually push it that you should drink to such a level on Purim. Wine. It's supposed to be wine. Well, we'll speak about everything, right? We'll speak about the levels and what you're supposed to drink, what you shouldn't drink. But the idea before we even get to that is try to understand the whole concept of alcohol, the whole concept of where alcohol lies and what its actual purpose is. So when you look in the Gemara, you look in there's many different ideas that it speaks about wine. You look at Gemara in Brachot, for example, page 48. It says nothing causes more grief than wine. And then you look at another Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 43. That says something that they used to do when you used to do capital punishment. So when somebody would, let's say, hung or stoned or whatever it is that they had to, it was a death penalty. They would give the person who's dying a lot of alcohol, like strong wine. So even though that he is getting the capital punishment, but at least it's sort of like a numbness, and think of it as anesthesia, something that it will sort of numb the actual pain from it. So we see over here that wine is not really always associated with the best and funnest times. And but then again, you look in the Torah, you look in the Tehillim, in Psalms. Chapter 104, verse 15, it says, "V'yayin yismach levav enosh." Wine makes someone happy, and that we know for sure. Everybody could attest to that. That wine lifts your spirit, actually lifts your spirit, up. And in fact, the Gemara in Psachim, in page 109a, says, "V'achshav she'en bet hamikdash kayam en simcha ela b'yayin." Now that there's no temple, because now the temple is destroyed, there's no happiness other than wine, which is something that we have to also understand. These concepts. What does that mean? You're trying to tell me that if somebody is happy, it must be that they're drunk. Otherwise, there's no such thing as happiness. So there are many ideas on it, and it even says that the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, "Yain, wine, shema'adim pneihem shel rishayim ba'olam hazeh umalbin pneihem lo'olam haba." Wine makes the wicked people's face red in this world and whitens it out of embarrassment in the next world, from all the certain sins that the person does when they drink wine. So when you think about the origin of wine, there's a fascinating midrash that speaks about the origin of alcohol in a sense, and how the Satan got involved in it. There was Noach when Noah came out of the ark. He planted a vineyard. He wanted to produce grapes. So comes Satan. The Satan comes over to him and says, what you doing? So he says, I'm planting a vineyard. So Satan says, mind if I help out? Also, of course, why not? Come. Enjoy. Crazy midrash. And so the Satan goes, and they plant the seeds inside there. Then the Satan goes and takes a sheep and a lamb. Takes a lamb, slaughters the lamb over the roof. Then they take a monkey and they slaughter it over also the monkey over the. They take a lion next. Also, they slaughter the lion. Then they take a monkey, they slaughter the monkey, and then they take a pig and they slaughter the pig. So, and the hints are these things is if you have one cup of wine, so then you're like a lamb. You're like buzzed, you're chilled, everything's relaxed, you're okay. Once you take a second shot, all of a sudden you're like brave like a lion. You all of a sudden get up and be like, "What's up, bro? Yeah, you want to go?" All of a sudden you could take on the entire world. I knew whatever. I'm talking about shots of whatever it is. There's levels. When you take one, when you drink a little bit, you get buzzed, you're light, you're relaxed, you're chilled out, you're cruising, and then you drink a little bit more, suddenly you get hyped up. You're like, I want to fight that person. And that person could be like the UFC championship, and you're like, I could take it, right? And even if you're 4'5", weigh 350 pounds, you could just roll to the place. You're like, I got this. Yeah, you have this courage that comes on, and this is a courage that actually that many people take it on to different levels, where people call people they shouldn't be calling when they drink a little bit. They text people they shouldn't be texting when they drink. I think we all get the gist of it. Then you drink a little bit more, you become like a monkey. You become like a monkey, jumping around. You're crazy. You're doing all these crazy things. You're falling over yourself. You're swinging from place to place. And finally, you drink even more, you become like a pig, rolling in your own feces. You vomit and you roll in it just like a pig is. So that is the steps that it goes on to become. Now there's another midrash in Midbar Rabbah that says like this. That says, fascinating, amazing. When wine and there's a nichnas yain yatsa sod. Wine goes in, secrets come out. That's literally it said, and that's how they explain it. And you take, there's something called numerical value. Numerical value is like, think of it as A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and so on and so forth. The same idea. Think about it in the Aleph bet. So Aleph is 1, bet is 2, Gimel is 3, so on and so forth. So you take the numerical value of yain, which is wine, it's 70. You take the numerical value of sod, which is secret, is also 70. Which means is you take the wine in, you take the 70 in, and what comes out? The 70, the secret comes out. And that's what happens. When some people start, chugging some alcohol, all of a sudden people start opening up. And be like, and they tell you the worst secrets. In the way, like, dude, don't tell me these things. I don't want to know these things. And they open up to you, and that is one of the character traits of wine. So, when you think of alcohol, so we threw out some ideas in it. I want to put it in perspective, and I want to go into, when you think about alcohol, especially if you think about it in the world that we live in today. So what happens if someone drinks a lot of alcohol, and what in all these bars, besides that, there's bar fights. It's constant. It's aggression. A guy's an alcoholic. He goes home. What does he do? He beats his wife. Does that mean that all of a sudden that alcohol? Not everybody. But there's a nice heavy, So you go and you think about this guy. Is alcohol just bringing out the bad in him? Like he was such a sweet guy, and all of a sudden he drinks and he becomes a wild maniac. Is that really what alcohol does? Or really what alcohol does is this guy, all along he wanted to beat his wife. He always wanted. He just had this like tiny filter in his head that says every time he wanted to smack her, it's like, hold up a second. It's not going to be good for the long run. Do you like half your stuff? You want to, see the kids? Just maybe not be good. That when you drink the alcohol, it's sort of just like, it flies out of the window. And you do, so this guy who's drinking, and then is hitting his wife, he the whole time wants to hit his wife. The only difference is now he had the filter. Now that he doesn't have the filter because the alcohol took it away. And so now he goes and he's able to hit his wife. So you could tell a lot about a person when a person's drunk. When a person drinks a lot, you could tell a lot about what's really going inside that person. If that person drinks and all of a sudden every other word is a curse word. Every time he sees a woman walk across the street, he starts yelling profanities at her. Every time that he just the dirtiest things that come out of his mouth, then that guy is just a dirty guy. That's who he is inside. But if a guy is drinking and he's like sitting over there and he's all whatever it is, and he's like, I love God, and he's like, it's all about this, and then he goes to his wife and be like, honey, I love you, you're the most amazing woman. Men in general have a very hard time expressing themselves. They have a hard time saying I love you to their wife. So they drink, and all of a sudden they start saying I love you. So it's just an amazing thing, because that means all along your husband really loves you inside. It's very hard for them to express it. You have the alcohol that comes it out. So we see here a very fundamental, it's not even I would say secret, but it's not a secret, fundamental character trait of wine is it tells you what's going on inside and it brings it outside. And it shows you what's going on inside is what's going on outside. So when we look at the story of Purim, there are, generally speaking, people drink alcohol for many, many reasons. But there's two ends of the spectrum. Number one, it could be because they lost something, they're either going through a divorce, they're separated, they're losing a spouse, or something really bad that's happened, they lost their business, something is really bad, so they turn to the bottle, and the bottle usually comforts them. Then you have on the other end of the spectrum, they just close a crazy deal. They're so crazy successful, let's celebrate. Come on, guys, bottles on me. And you go out and you celebrate. So there's two. When you think about it, it's a two complete opposite. Either the worst thing happens to you, go to alcohol. The best thing happens to you, go to alcohol. So it's a two wide ends of the spectrum. Those two wide ends of the spectrum happen in the story of Purim. Happen in the story of Purim because you have at one point right in the beginning of the story of Purim, Achashverosh, the king, he wanted to go and he made a whole party. What was the party? The party was that basically the Jews are done. They're never going to go into power again. Let's make this party. And the Jews came to this party and they were drinking and everybody was drinking. Everyone was doing what they shouldn't have been doing, but they were doing it out of like desperation. That's it. We're done. It's a lost cause. We lost already. Then you have the party at the end of the story of Purim, which is everything turned around. The Jews came out on top. The Jews won. The Jews were successful, so they drink out of the happiness. So you have two. In the beginning of the story of Purim, people were drinking out of sadness, out of depression, out of lost. This is a lost cause. At the end of the story of Purim, people are drinking now all of a sudden for the happiness. So you have here the two reasons why people actually drink is in the story of Purim, which is also a little bit of a hint of why we start specifically on Purim, where we're drinking. We're going to go through many, many more reasons. But if you think about the story of Purim, it's something that it's let me explain it to you like this. This is the first time the Jews went into exile in their history. So they were redeemed as a nation from Egypt. Then they went through the desert, and then finally went into Israel. They were in Eretz Israel. They had the temple. It was the first Beit HaMikdash. Everything was going amazing, top of the world, really top of the world. Then comes Nebuchadnezzar, destroys it. The first exile, they get out of their exile, but they get a prophet from Jeremiah, tells them a prophecy and says, "Don't worry about it, guys. 70 years, we're coming back." So they make a calculation. They count to 70 years, but guess what? They were wrong in the calculation, but they thought they were right. And they were like, "Listen, 70 years passed. Where's God? God didn't take us out." So this is why Achashverosh made the party. Achashverosh made the party because he said the 70 years are up. The Jews are not going back anymore. The Jews are not going to take over my kingdom. It's not going to be split in half. And hence, I'm going to go celebrate. And he took a big dekorah. He took things out of the party. So think of it from the Jewish perspective. You're sitting in there. This is the first exile you have ever experienced. And you're sitting out over there. And all of a sudden, you're like, you were supposed to be redeemed. You're not redeemed anymore. And then, on top of that all, comes a decree. Haman HaRasha, he comes in and he says, we're going to destroy all the Jews. You know why? Because they're different. They don't want to assimilate with us. They mutilate their body with circumcision. They do crazy stuff. And we're going to kill. So we are getting prosecuted now because we're different. So we lost our land. We think, where's God? God has forsaken us. God has abandoned us in a certain sense. And now we're getting prosecuted in this world. So what many people will think, be like, all right, you can't beat them, join him. If God, forsake us, abandon us, we'll abandon him. Let us go. And this is unfortunately how many people thought about it after the Holocaust. They left the Holocaust and said, listen, God left me, I'm going to leave him. It's a wrong perception. We can't judge them, but I'm saying it's a wrong idea. But this is what they thought about also. They could have thought about this at the time of the Purim. God is gone. Let us go. Let us assimilate. We'll save our lives. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They actually stuck strong to God. Not only did they stuck strong to God, is that they increased their observance. They did teshuvah, they did the repentance, and they came full on force back to God. So you see that the level of such an amazing test that they were able to pass in the story of Purim, it's really a cause of celebration. This is, and in fact, in the story of Purim, it says that we accepted the Torah like never before. Before, when we accepted the Torah on Har Sinai, when God gave us the Torah, it wasn't like we had a choice. We're like literally enslaved people. We're like bound in chains, and then comes like a miracle worker, and we're like, all right, listen, I'll get you out of here. We're going to go to freedom. You're going to be free, but you got to accept the Torah. Like, all right, well, yeah, whatever it's got to do to get out of here. Let's do it. And then, so you get out there, we get the Torah. Above that, God puts a mountain over our head and be like, you better accept the Torah. But we're taking the Torah. So we're sort of like got a little bit of a twisted hand to push into it. But come to the story of Purim, we came and we accepted the Torah willingly. Not because we were forced. And the opposite, we had a reason to run. We had a reason to leave everything all behind and go. But we didn't. We turned around and we said, no, we're sticking here. We're Jews and we're proud to be Jewish. And we're going to stay strong to God. Even though that it's going to breach in our survival. Now, I want to begin speaking about what is the purpose of drinking. You think about drinking. So we spoke about many ideas that when you drink, you make yourself happy. So one of the reasons is on Purim you're supposed to be happy, so we drink a little bit extra. But I heard this amazing idea on why we actually drink on Purim. And it says we think that we drink to make ourselves happy. It's not the reason why we drink on Purim. We drink on Purim to make somebody else happy, to make the other person happy. And I'll explain this to you with a story. Stories like this. There was once a woman. It's a true story that happened in Israel. There was once a woman who was she was 8 weeks pregnant, and she didn't have a good success rate in her pregnancies. She had already 2 miscarriages. So she was 8 weeks pregnant, and then she started noticing blood, which is never a good sign, especially not in the beginning of a pregnancy. So she's going all stressed out. She's like, "Oh, come on, not again!" It's such a hard thing for a woman, also a parent to go through, but it's such a hard thing for the woman itself to go through. And she's like, I can't go through this again. And she starts seeing blood. So she goes. It was like the middle of the night. She calls up. She had 2 kids. She calls up a babysitter. Please come over. And her husband went to the hospital. So they go into the hospital, and the nurse over there is taking all the information. How far in are you? All the questions, height, weight, all the regular stuff. And then they said, okay, fine. Let's go. Let's open up the ultrasound and look inside and see what we see. So the technician over there is taking the ultrasound. They put the gel on the and they start moving it around. And they see the technician moving from one side and going to the other side. then going down, then going all around. It's sort of like, and the mother over there, the soon-to-be mother, is like looking at this technician, and she sees that her eyes are like straining. She's like trying to find something, or either she can't find something, or she sees something that shouldn't be there. So now the mother starts getting nervous, and she's like, is everything okay? She's like, is the baby okay? And so the technician's like, listen, to be honest, our machines are really old and outdated. I see the pregnancy sac, so you have something in there, but I don't see the baby. But it does, we have old dated machines. What I would suggest is tomorrow go to your doctor. You have some much more advanced machines, and go and get your the ultrasound over there. So. This woman already felt like that's it. It's done. I've been through this road before. But what she could do, there's nothing that she could do. They sent her to the doctor. So the next day she made an appointment for the doctor. So the doctor she goes into the doctor's office, and they put on the gel again. They go through the ultrasound, and again the doctor's moving it from place to place, and he's like, listen, there's no baby in here, and he's like, if you want, we could try again in a week, and we could see, if there's anything else. And she's like, is that going to be a difference? She's like, I'm not the type of person that wants to push it off. If it's not there, let me mourn, let me get over with it, and let's move on with life. So he said, to be honest, I don't think it's going to make any difference. If it's not there, it's not there. But if you want, you could go to the hospital and take care of it now. They do a DNC. They clear out the contents of the stomach. So she goes and she says, fine. She gets a prescription from the doctor that she should go get the DNC. She goes and gets the baby, whatever is remaining inside her stomach to get it out. So as the doctor is writing it, he's like, but you're not going to be able to go within the next few days. She's like, why not? He's like, it's because of the holiday. And she just realized, she completely forgot the holiday of Purim was actually was the next day, and it was in Israel, it was a religious hospital, so they're all now, they're very low on staff and so she's like, oh my God, I didn't even think. She's like, I can't believe it. I completely, with all this going on, and she's like, no, you're right. It's like, I'm not even going to try because I'm having, she was planning on having 30 girls from her seminary where she teaches over in her house for a Purim, like a party and things like that, and even though she could have gone in. And she was actually contemplating. And she says, listen, I don't have a head now to have a party after all this. I can't. She was actually thinking, let me go, get this done with, get it on and move on with life. And but if she would do that, if she would have gone to the hospital, she would not have been able to throw the party. She would actually still be in the hospital over Purim. And then she thought about it a little bit more. And she says, listen, there's a lot of girls they're away from home for the year. They go through like different hardships and different things. And this is one of the parties that actually lifts up their spirit. And she felt a little bad. She says, let's go on with the party. And I'll go after Purim. I'll go to the hospital. I'm taken care of. So she goes and didn't tell anybody. Only her and her husband know. And she started preparing for the party. As they're getting closer to Purim, the husband, every year they go and they dress up. So he asked his wife, and he says, are you getting dressed up this year? And she says, I am dressed up already. She says, my face, my smile, that's my dress up. Because inside I'm broken inside, but outside I'm going to show that my costume is going to be my outside. My joy is my costume. So somehow she went and she made the party, and it was great. It was a great party. And during the party, you had all the girls come over, and they have the biggest drama. Like my friend, didn't let me sleep in her room, and then I got pushed out over here. And literally, like the biggest problems in life. And she's sitting over there, and she's in her mind, she's like, you have got to be kidding me. She says, I got to listen to this right now, what I'm going through with this problem. But you know what? She held it back, and she said, you know what? You're going through an issue. She put on a smile. She listened to her all the students' issues, and she tried to make them feel better, and she tried to give them support and chizuk. And she did, and she made a lot of them feel better, and she felt a little bit better herself. And the party went out great and went without a hitch, and Purim was over. She's thinking, Purim is over, my pregnancy is over. Then she starts thinking, maybe there was a miracle of Purim, maybe I'll have a miracle somehow with the pregnancy. But then she's like, what? I'm going to push all these nonsense in my mind. It's done, let's get this over. So she decides that the next day, she's going to go and she's going to call to make an appointment in the hospital. She calls up the next day to make the appointment, and then before she calls, she's like, wait a minute. She's like, the only time that they'll give her an appointment will be Thursday, which it was like Wednesday already, so it will be the next day after that, which is Thursday, which means if she goes in Thursday, she's going to be in Shabbat over in the hospital. And she's like, you know what, I really don't want to be in Shabbat in the hospital. I'll wait till Sunday. Sunday, I'll call them, I'll make the appointment, I'll take care of it then. So she's going in, and come Saturday night, she's arranging babysitters for her kids for the next day. So she go for the next 2 days. So she go to the hospital, and suddenly she hears sirens from like all directions flying past by her. And as a resident living in Israel for a long time, she knew there was only one reason that happened. It was because there was some sort of terrorist attack or something going on. So she turns on the radio, And lo and behold, there was a terrorist that detonated himself about 10 minutes away from her house in an area of Jerusalem called Bet Israel. So there was actually a group of women sitting there with baby carriages in the area that he detonated himself, and they killed 6 children were killed and 4 mothers were killed, and about 50 other women and children were hurt in this attack. And everybody, it was like a crazy situation. And she's thinking, she's like, listen, I'm not going to make an appointment tomorrow to go to the hospital. They need all hands on deck for this situation. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to wait another week. Give them a week. Let them, whoever's, they need whatever help they can get. So she goes and she waits a whole week, and then she calls up the next week. She calls up Sunday. She's like, listen, I want to make an appointment. I need to come in for a DNC. And, she gives them the whole situation. They're like, no problem. Send over the prescription, and we'll take care of it. So they send over the prescription. She gets a call back shortly after. She's like, listen, this prescription already, for these types of things, you need a prescription very close to when you're doing it. This is already expired. It's too late. You got to go back to your doctor, get a new prescription, and then come back here. She says, fine, what can I do? So she goes back to the doctor the next day. And she's sitting by the doctor, and the doctor sees her. She said, she explains the situation. She wasn't able to do it. It's there, and she's sitting in the doctor's office, and she's looking at the ultrasound machine, with like longing eyes. And then she's like thinking. She goes to the doctor. She's like, is it okay if we just look one more time, just for old time's sake? Let's just take one more look. And the doctor said, listen, it's not going to make any difference. He says, we checked twice. We did 2 ultrasounds. We took your blood work. The blood work. The hormone levels are too low. And it's really not going to make a difference. And at this point in time, she was trying to hold it strong for like 2 weeks. Everything is bottled up. Everything just came, waterworks just came right out. She started bawling like a baby. And she was like, this is not like her. And the doctor's like, okay. Yeah. Would you feel better if we do an ultrasound? And she's like, sniffing, couldn't even say words. And she's like, yeah. She's like, not a problem. Relaxing her. Sit down. We'll do your ultrasound. So she sits down, and the doctor puts on the gel and starts moving it around. And he starts moving it out. He gets to one spot, and the piece almost falls off. He goes back on, and he puts it on. And she's looking at this. She's looking at the monitor. He's looking at the monitor, and she's like, is that what I think it is? And the doctor, like wide-eyed, he's like, yeah. And he moves on a little bit more to the left, and you starting to hear the heartbeat. And he's looking all around the stomach, and then he says, how far in are you? And she's like, should be about 10 weeks, a little bit over 10 weeks. And he starts moving it around, and or is it 8 weeks? And he's like, he says, you're not 8 weeks. And he starts measuring the baby. He says, you're 6 weeks. And the biggest miracle is that the first time that you're able actually to see the baby and to hear the baby was exactly that amount of days since the beginning till where she came in. Which means had she come in a day before, or 2 days before, or a week before, they would have still seen nothing. They would have seen nothing because she miscalculated it. It was really she was a few weeks off. And the only time they were able to see it is because she came. Now, why was it all pushed off? You know why it was pushed off? Because she constantly, not once, but twice, she was caring for other people, and she didn't want to do for other people. So she said, you know what? I'm going to hold away. I'm going to make a Purim Suda. I'm going to make a Purim meal. Other people need me. And then came another attack, and she says, you know what? They need it more than I do right now. They need all hands on deck. She was willing to forego her own need for somebody else. Guess what? She was more successful at the end. And this is one of the secrets of Purim. You know what we drink on Purim? We drink on Purim not to bring our happiness out, but to help other people's happiness. We get nicer, we become nicer. Generally speaking, if you're a nice person inside, you become even nicer person when you drink. If you're a bad person, you just become a worse person when you drink. But as Jews, generally we're hoping that we're all nice people. So you drink, you become better. What happens when you become better? You become better for other people. You be able to make somebody else happy. And I don't have to tell it to you, but there's so many people going through issues nowadays. And I shouldn't say so many. Everybody's going through an issue. You're sitting there. This Purim, one of your main focus should be, is not on yourself. Not keep on chugging the alcohol just to get yourself the buzz that you want to get. The main focus you should be is you should go and try to make somebody else feel better. Just one person. Everybody. You don't know how many troubles people are going through. Whether it's money, whether it's finding a marriage partner, getting kids, or having a marriage partner. It's not working well. There's so many issues that people are going through in this day and age, and it's a day that we have to be happy. That we're trying to be happy. So what happens is if we hold our happiness for 1 second and help somebody else become happy, we will at the end be much more happier at the end of the day, and we'll see much more success in that. Yeah.
Wasn't alcohol illegal like 100 years ago?
Illegal in America.
Yeah.
Back then, if it was illegal, then you're not allowed to. There's a rule, dina machus dina. You got to follow laws of the land. But nowadays it's not legal, so it's legal.
When did they come out with the rule you're allowed to drink?
No, this is way before. Alcohol was only illegal for a certain amount of time. It wasn't always illegal.
1930s.
Yeah. Otherwise, beforehand, and besides, it was only America, I think. It wasn't the whole one. Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll get that at the end. It's a completely different idea. Okay. So one reason, so now we have over here, one reason why we drink on Purim is not for us, not for our happiness, but for somebody else's happiness. To get that other person just a little bit more happier. There is a very, very interesting Gemara in Mesachet Megillah, the 7th page, 7b. Amar Rava, and this is one of the things I want to focus on, and I'll say it in Aramaic, and then we'll translate it. Mechayev inish lebesume bepuria. A person has to drink until he doesn't know ben aor Haman, between cursed Haman levaroch Mordechai, between cursed Mordechai, which means is you drink so much that you're not going to know, should I bless Mordechai, should I curse Mordechai, should I bless Haman or should I curse Haman? That's how much you're supposed to drink. That's a crazy amount of drink. You're talking about like a whole nother level of drinking. And to understand this thing, we have to come with a very, very obvious questions. Let's say I present you the best alcohol, as much as you could have, and I will keep on pouring you, whatever it is that you like. 60-year-old single malt scotch. You just get as much as you want with the best meats, and you just keep on drinking it. Will it ever come a time where you'll be like, I bless Hitler? Is that ever going to happen? So how do you tell me that? How does the Gemara say we drink so much that we want to curse Mordechai, the biggest tzaddik, and bless? You want to bless Haman, the biggest rasha. It's imagine drinking so much that you want to say, I want to curse Chacham Avad Yosef and I want to bless Hitler. Can you imagine that scenario? So the amount of alcohol is not going to change. A person is never going to change that amount. No one's going to want to do that. No one's going to want to curse the biggest tzaddik and bless the biggest rasha. So the Rambam, Moreh Nevuchim, says, there's, when you could come to a logical assumption, a logical conclusion is a better term, that there is a God. If you just look a little bit outside the box, and forget it, not even outside the box, you open your eyes in the world. You see how the world is situated. It's just look at a tree. And you can look at a tree, you can already see, okay, there is a God. And if that doesn't happen, so you keep on expanding. You look at a person, you look at an animal, if that doesn't work, just look at the world. You know where the earth is? The only way for the earth to exist the way it exists, it's only if it's where it is right now. If it's like a few miles or whatever the distance is to the, closer to the sun or further sun, we would cease to exist. And the universe is huge. It's a huge universe. So the only place that we could exist is the place that we actually are. And if it would move a little bit this way, a little bit that way, we would cease to exist. The whole ecosystem, just think about if you have to be an idiot to think that it's atheist, that just happened from nothing. It's so mathematically, it's like, if you do the mathematics of it, it's so unlikely, the number of how many, if you take the number of what's the possibility of it happening by mistake, by accident, with a big bang, it's insignificant. It's so tiny. You can't. It's not even there. It's not a number. It's not a real thing. So if you open your eyes and you're looking through the world, you will come to the conclusion that God exists. That's how Avraham Avinu came to the conclusion. So you have this idea that you could come to a logical conclusion through your intellect. However, there is a higher. It says the Rambam. There's a higher level of thing. There's a higher level, and the height of understanding is to not know. Which means is that you come to a level, you could come to a level and be like, I realize, the more you know is the more you realize you really don't know. And that is the height of understanding. So, this is really a wise person. A wise person is not going to be like, I know everything. You got a little kid, right? Little kids know everything. I want to teach you the ABCs. I know everything already. All right, I'll teach you how to read. I know how to read everything already. I mean, they learn how to read the and end and whatever, a few other little 3-letter words, but they think they know the whole world. And why? Because the amount of knowledge that they have is very minimal. So they think they know everything because they think they know everything that they have. But the more that you learn and the more that you study, the less that you realize that you actually know. So when we drink on Purim, we're drinking on Purim to realize we keep on drinking. When we drink to realize that we don't know. We drink. We think we know. We think we know the answers. We think, we see in life that there's comes a time you see Haman and you see someone who's very wicked and he's very successful. You see a big tzaddik and he's very unsuccessful. He has a hard life. And we think we know all the answers. Be like, oh, where's God? We drink to the level that we realize that we don't know. It goes beyond it. We go to a level that we don't know. And this is the whole story of Purim. The whole story of Purim is a story of everything looks like it was going great. I'm sorry, everything looks like it was going bad. Completely opposite. Everything looks like it was going bad. The whole story was going bad, and you're like, what is God doing? Only at the end did everything switch around and turn out for the best. The same thing that we do when we realize on Purim we're drinking, to realize that even though we see everything looks bad that it's happening in our lives or somebody else's life, but we really don't know the full picture, and the full picture is really for the best. So we drink to that level that we understand that we don't know. And to understand this this idea a little bit more, I heard this interesting explanation regarding a shatran. A shatran is like a marriage. Think of it as like a marriage broker, I guess. I don't know. The guy who matchmaker, right? So you go, there's a bunch of guys and a bunch of girls that go to one person, and they say, I want this type of guy, and she says, I want this, he says, I want this type of girl, with these qualities and these things, yada, 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 and the matchmaker plays matchmaking, and he tries to connect the dots to find the soulmates. What happens if they come mad and they say, listen, it was nice, he's nice, but I don't know if he's so much for me. So the matchmaker says, listen, what was the problem? And she says, X, Y, and Z, and he says, listen, I heard very good things about him. Maybe give him another shot. They're like, I don't know, and they talk back and forth. They fine. They convince. They go out another shot. They go out another date, and it turns out pretty good. So they go out a third date, a fourth date, and it gets much better. So much so that finally they get engaged. Who's the happiest person besides the couple themselves in the immediate family? The shatran. Yeah, so come on, I made this. This is my handiwork. Come on. And depends what type of people they are. But no, I've never heard that actually. Nothing. Okay. Comes the wedding. The shatran is sitting there at the wedding. He is the happiest. He's the happiest guy over there, sitting at the wedding. But after the chuppah, the chatan and kala go over to him and says, listen, we appreciate everything that you did. You are great, but we hope never to use you again, which makes sense. The matchmaker, think of it as the intellect. The intellect, we came to God's understanding through our intellect. We learn Torah, comes Purim, and we're beyond the intellect now. We have a connection with God that we don't need you. We tell the shatran, we don't need you. Our connection is strong enough. We don't need you to help us to stay together. We're married together. We're good. Comes Purim, and we tell our intellect, take a day off. To a certain extent, obviously. We say, take a day off, we got this. We don't need to understand God through the way of understanding Him. We're going to go with our God through our hearts, through our love. We're just going to be so connected that we don't need the whole intellectual process of proving God and this and that. There was, and if you live your life this way, where you don't, there's things that happen in your life, and you're like, why is it happening? And only at the end will you realize the full picture. It's really great. And if you're able to live the life that everything is always great, your life is going to be just such a happy life. It's going to be like, no matter bad or good happens. And I tell this, everybody tells me this at the same time. Somebody who's really become religious. I was speaking to a woman last night who was becoming more religious, and for what? No, different. We're local, and she says, and I was asking her, so now that you've been religious for quite some time, one of the main things that I ask is, where's like your happiness level? And she's like, every single person, the one that really becomes religious, always have the same answers. Oh, you gotta be. It's like all without a doubt. Like I become less angry. Everybody tells me the same, I become less angry. And then they explain to me, like, listen, because let's say someone, and I'll give you the example that she gave me last night. Someone cuts me off, right? But I'll be like, okay, whatever, there's a reason for it. And when you start living your life that there's reasons for it, even though that person was literally somebody who maybe is a meshugana, maybe he's a crazy guy, and they cut you off because he's an idiot, it's very possible, but God orchestrated everything. When you live your life that you realize that God orchestrates everything, you don't sweat the small stuff. You're not going to be bothered. Your blood pressure is going to be relaxed.
Have you ever driven in ballpark?
I have. So, but try driving it when you keep Shabbat and you keep kosher and you keep all those things. A completely different drive.
Yeah. Probably is. Right?
So you're more relaxed. You're like, okay, whatever. You're more chilled out. You realize there's a bigger plan. There's a bigger purpose. You don't control your life. There was once this amazing story. There was once a guy who his name was Jeremy. A true story. And it was like in the early 1950s. And he lived in America. And he decided, after the Holocaust, he wanted to move to Israel. So he moves to Israel, and after the Holocaust, a bunch of people from Israel moved also to. A bunch of people from Germany or from whatever, where they were through the Holocaust, they also moved to Israel. And there were many places called like kibbutzim, with the places where they would work and they would live. So this German ended up like up north in some kibbutz, and he was he made some friends over there. There were also Holocaust survivors. And one day it was a hot summer day, and they're all working out in the field. So the Holocaust survivors usually don't like to, they usually cover their number. They all have tattooed numbers on from the Holocaust. The Germans were very meticulous with numbers, and they basically gave them, they were like a barcode. So it was a number on them. So they usually kept it covered, but it was very hot. So, one of his close friends, I believe Yehuda, if I'm not mistaken, he rolled up his sleeve. And this is the first time that Jeremy sees his friend's number. And he looks at his friend's number, and then he stares at it for like literally 2 minutes, and he's like, trying to get a better look at it, and the guy sees him looking at the number, and be like, you never seen the numbers before? Like, we all have it over here. And he's like, no. It's just like, he's like, what's your number? So he's like, 4716, and he's like, that's your number? And he's like, what? It's just a number, dude. Like, what, relax. And he's like, no, you don't. He's like, that's my last four of my social, because he was American. And the guy was, the guy was not religious. He's like, oh, whatever, coincidence. Well, a big deal. And Jeremy's like, he's like, no, come on, there's no coincidence. Out of all the people, my good friend is the one who has the same numbers as my social. Like, come on, dude, it's got to be more than that. And the guy's like, Mishuga, what are you, crazy? It's all whatever, it's nothing, it's all coincidence. So, fine, they work, they're close for like a few years, and then they split, they move their own ways. And this Jeremy ends up becoming a tour guide because he knew English. He was from America, so he had all these American businessmen that come or with their families. They come to Israel. They wanted to see around a little bit. So he bought him a limousine, and he went and he took all these people around, and that was his business. And he had some good customers. He had some bad customers, annoying, like the regular the run of the mill. And he liked his job. One day someone walks into his car. And, he picks him up from the airport. He's going to do the whole tour with him for a few days. And this guy is just barking orders nonstop, like the most disgusting, angriest person he's ever met. And the guy's like, well, his customer, he's like nonstop. He's like, go over here, do this, stop doing this, stop driving this. Like literally barking orders and driving this guy crazy. But, it's business. You may put a smile. Be like, whatever the customer wants, the customer gets. And, you try. And inside, the blood pressure is like, going higher and higher. And finally, he's driving. He's getting out of his mind. The customer in the back says, driver, pull over right now. And the guy's like, this is the end of the day. He pulls over. He turns around. He says, what? And so the customer says, listen. He says, I know that I turn out to be a hard guy sometimes, and I cause a little bit of problems. I just want you to know that I became like this. I was really a really nice guy, and I want to apologize for everything that I did. I know I'm sometimes a hard person to deal with. I just want to let you know, I'm a Holocaust survivor, and I went through the Holocaust, and it's very hard for me, and I lost my entire family over there. I'm the only one that survived, and I took it really hard, and I'm sorry sometimes it comes out in anger. And he rolls up his sleeve to show, to prove him basically that he's a Holocaust survivor. So the guy in the back, the customer. So he opens up his sleeve, and he sees over there, 4717. And he stares at the number, and he's like, you're not alone, buddy. The guy says, what are you talking about? You don't even know my name. I'm like, I know where your brother lives. It'd be like, you're crazy over here in Israel. He's like, what are you talking about? He says, he doesn't even say a word. He just floors it, and he drives across the country to where his good friend Yehuda lives, and he goes over there, and he says, he stops open the door. He says, come out. He pulls him out. He goes over to the front. He starts ringing the bell, and he stands over there, and he just watches it. The guy opens the door, and if you could just imagine the thing, they just stare at each other. They both thought that they were the last ones, the only ones that survived. Because they both went, they checked the list, they were not on the list. For some reason, they missed it. They went and they gave them such a hug, such an embrace, and such a crying. So they went over to the guy and be like, how did you know? How did you know? Says, the only reason I knew, and the only reason I remembered, is because me and your brother had the same number. My last four of the social was his last of the, of his numbers on the arm. Coincidence? I don't think so. There's no such thing as coincidence. God works the whole world. It manipulates the whole world to go in a certain way and to make things that happen a certain way. When we think that things just happen, this guy Jeremy thought, okay, well, maybe it was a coincidence. Only did he realize that 5 years later it was going to be the biggest reunion that he could ever have between two lost brothers that each thought that the other one was dead. So we see over here that everything happens for a purpose. This is what says Hashal V'Ameshav. He explains like this. He says, you know what we drink that we bless Haman or curse Haman? It doesn't make a difference. Everything is from God. Let's say someone goes and someone steals from you. God forbid, right? Someone takes money from you. So you get really upset about that person. But was it really that person that really stole from you? Granted, yes, they did steal, but it was all orchestrated from God above. God said, okay, you're going to lose a certain amount of money. He's going to be a messenger. Granted, he gets punished for being a messenger, but he's a messenger nonetheless. It was all orchestrated from up above. So you think, okay, well, I'm going to get upset about him. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. It doesn't matter. It's not about you. It's not about him. It's all from God. We drink. You know what we drink? And I'll get you in a second. We drink, right? We drink until we want to bless Haman, curse Haman, bless Mordechai, curse Mordechai. You know why we drink to that level? To realize that it's not Haman, it's not Mordechai, it's not blessed that. It's nobody other than God. And that's why we drink so much on Purim. We drink so much on Purim until we get out of our normal physical world where we think that we control everything, to realize that God controls everything. and God is the one who is in actual focus and control of everything.
So remember how you were saying, the guy who drinks a lot goes home, beats up his wife?
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that he might be a bad man too. You just don't know what he's going through. Maybe it's
Yeah. I'm not judging the person.
same concept, right?
Yeah, but generally speaking, when a person, you are. No, you're right. No, you're right. Because when a person is drinking, even though they might be going through something, but that's how you can tell what they are inside. It'll still come out. And we're not judging anybody, but the reason is that whatever is going inside usually comes out. So when and if you look at the story of Purim, it shows beautifully this idea. So you look at the story of Purim, the first party that Achashverosh threw, the Jews, you know why they were drinking at that party? They gave up in life. That's it. We're nothing to do with. There's nothing, And in fact, the decree was sealed because of what they thought they gave up. Which means, if you understand that idea, you know why we got punished in the story of Purim? Because we drank in the party of Achashverosh. That's why we got punished. So now, when you look at the story, you look how the story continues. So we thought, you know what we have to do? He's making a party now, Achashverosh. So political correctness would be that we have to go to the party. Obama's making a party. Well, not Obama anymore. Trump is making a party, but let's say it would be non-kosher everything, non-kosher this, and it's just a non-kosher environment. We'd be like, we have to go. God, we represent the Jewish people, even though you're not allowed to go. But so we have to go. So we thought that it's in our control. It's in our hands. We have the political, the level of our politics, the way that it's going to go is in our hands. So we have to do what we have to do. So they didn't think about it that God is controlling everything, but rather we are controlling everything. And when did they realize and they turned to God? They realized and they turned to God only when they realized that there was no other option. That Haman would decree that all Jews should die. And there was a decree basically of an extermination of the entire Jewish people. And they finally were pushed into a corner realizing there's no other way to turn. We have nowhere else to turn, only into our Father in heaven. When we realize that there is nobody else other than God, that's when the salvation comes. And that, when it came? It came not when we thought we were able to do something. It came when we thought we don't got nothing. We don't got any playing cards to play. We're done. And then when we're done, when you got a neck on your thing, right, no ATS in a foxhole, all of a sudden you start praying to God. And guess what? It worked. Because that was the purpose of it all, to come and return to God. And this is the same idea that replays itself over and over again. Think about it in our finances. Back in the 80s and 90s, everything was going great. 90s more. Everything was going amazing. The stock market was booming. Everyone was making money. Real estate was going crazy. And everyone's like, okay, we trust in our finances, right? In God we trust, literally on the dollar. In God we trust. We literally trusted in the dollar. So, we're going into our finances, and then what does God do? The crash. Comes a few years later, besides the stock market crash, you have the real estate bubble burst, and you have everything just come crashing down. But the second that we start feeling secure about something and we don't realize that it's all God, comes a crash. Comes America. We're living in America. We don't have to worry about terrorist attacks. We don't have to worry about anything. Here we're safe. Comes September 11th. Right, the biggest terror attack that in the history of America comes when we thought we're the most safest. This is the idea. We drink adelo yada until we don't know. We realize God, we don't know, and that's what we're drinking. We're drinking to get out of that level that we think that we know to a level that we don't know. Now, there is an idea also that when you drink, one of the purpose of drinking is that you should be able to thank God. But if you get so plastered that you're throwing up and you're doing some things that whatever it is, how can you thank God on that level? All you're doing when you're at that level is you're praying to the porcelain God, aka the toilet. Sitting there in front of hugging the toilet. Oh God. Like you're sitting over there praying to the thing, and then you're worshiping the God of the giving your insides to the God. Okay, but anyways, so let us. I want to get to the idea, the actual halachic concept. Should we drink? How much should we drink? What should we drink? And then if we have time, maybe we'll add some more reasons of why we drink until we don't know the difference. So there is there is the Rambam, Maimonides. He says as follows. He says we have the obligation in the feast, in the Purim meal, the Purim Suda, the Purim party, as some people call it, is to eat meat and drink wine until you're drunk, that you fall asleep from your drunkenness. Says the Rambam. I'm going to give you some things. So he says, no, you don't have to drink that much. All you have to do is you have to drink, but you have to drink more than you regularly do. And one of the reasons that this party specifically, this holiday, I may say, is why specifically we drink, is that the whole story of Purim happened with wine. Esther, Achashverosh, and Vashti, all the stories that happen, and if you go through the Megillah, you realize that every party had wine. The downfall, the success, everything had to do with wine. So too, we drink wine to commemorate that success, that thing. There's some people that say, you know how much we drink? You have to drink, so we spoke about numerical value. The numerical value of you don't know the difference between Ar Haman and Baruch Mordechai in the numerical value, so you can't calculate it, right? And it's both equals to well, I shouldn't tell it to you. Calculate it when you're drunk. You figure it out. Don't do it yet. So
everyone's different.
No. Calculate the difference between Ar Haman and Baruch Mordechai. The difference in the gematria. What? How many bottles of wine? How do you get to that? Depends. Some people they don't need any. Ar Haman, yeah. So I'll tell you. I'll give you afterwards the whole thing. Okay, so now, but what is the if you look at the poskim, and nowadays there's a conflicting thing. Some people say that you still have an obligation to drink and you still should drink, but you still should drink. By the way, let me make this very clear. According to like almost all the poskim, the main thing that a person should drink is wine, because everything happened with wine. Some people make tequilas drinks and this. It's not, the mitzvah is with wine. There is a very, very small percentage of poskim that say that no, really you could drink everything else. Why? Because back in the day, when they used to drink wine, the wine was a much higher level of alcohol content. It wasn't like we have now, 13%, 10%, it was a much higher level. So you could say whiskey maybe is also okay. But the majority of people, the real mitzvah is to drink with wine. If you're drinking, you should be drinking with wine. Obviously, you're drinking responsibly and you're of age, that you should drink with wine. But many people say that it's enough, and the Yad Ephraim also brings it down. The Pri Chadash also brings it down as well from the Rabbeinu Ephraim. He says that all you need to do is drink a smaller amount than usual. Let's say you usually drink a cup of wine, you drink a cup and a half, 2 cups of wine, whatever it is, and then you're yotze. That's good enough. But I want to read to you the Shlah HaKadosh. I'm gonna have to read this in Hebrew because it's so strong and so amazing, and I'll translate it. And he goes like this. It says the Shlah HaKadosh, Mesachtes Megillah. And it says, when you're drinking, you have to drink for the sake of heaven. So that you remember the nes, the miracle that happened in the drink of wine. Oh, listen to this. He says, not like those people that drink. Only just to fill their stomachs, to fill their necks. They just drink because they like drinking. To make lightheadedness and to make laughter, you make jokes and laughters. And then he goes over here. And then if somebody's not going to be careful, says the Shlah, on washing your hands, you're going to mess up somehow. You're not going to daven. You're not going to be able to do something. You're not allowed to go and drink. If you're not going to be able to do all the mitzvot, you're not going to be able to bench, you're not going to be able to do the brachot, and you're going to drink, and it's going to take you out of that, you're not allowed to drink. He says, that people think, Kol HaMarbeh, and I'm skipping over here, what is it? Kol HaMarbeh liyot meshugach harei ze meshubach. People think like this: the more crazier that you get, the greater, the bigger meshubach that you are. And it's not like that. So the whole point it is, and he goes on, he speaks very strong, and he says, "V'chol zehu bli safek ra umar." This is very, very bad. V'u oven plili. Ki lo hotar lanu rak simcha. You know what we drink? Only for simcha. Lo yischek v'kalas, not to be lightheadedness and jokey and like in a derogatory way. And he says over here that if somebody is not going to be, he's not going to be able to listen to the Megillah, he's not going to be able to do any mitzvot, he says really, really strong things against that thing. This is a really, really important concept, that if somebody's going to drink, and because you're drinking, you're not going to be able to do the mitzvahs, you're not going to be able to daven mariv, you're not going to be able to bench, you're not going to be able to do some sort of something that you're supposed to be doing, don't drink. Don't drink. You don't have a mitzvah to drink if it's going to come out on the expense of other mitzvot. What about women? Should women drink? So generally, women should not drink, especially that's not it's especially not to become intoxicated. If they want to drink a little bit more wine, let them go according to the Ramah, which is very simple. They drink just a little bit more than used to, and they're yotze. But they should definitely not get drunk, especially not in public. Right? Because the Shevet HaLevi brings it down. Okay, so the mitzvah. This is very important. The mitzvah to drink is not at night. The mitzvah to drink is only in the day, only in the Purim meal. There are many people that get plastered at night. They get plastered at night, and they can't wake up for the Megillah, and the whole day they have a headache and hungover, and they're doing worse and worse because they're not doing a mitzvah. They're just an excuse to get drunk. It's just an excuse to drink more than you can. And obviously, I don't have to say that there's Hatzalah warnings that during this time of the year, it's such a Chilul Hashem that goes on. Jews, when we drink, we're supposed to be happy people, fun people, even if you may, good people at the end of the day. But not that we're going and we're getting so drunk that you have to go and get pumped out in the hospital. You know how many people lose their lives or almost lose their lives because of Purim? Yeah, Purim. Yeah, young kids should not be drinking. Yeah, young kids should not be drinking. They don't know the thing. You go look. There are stories of people that almost. I know somebody who died not on Purim, who died from alcohol over it. Like what do you need that? You have no mitzvah to kill yourself. That's not a thing. And people have to learn. If you don't know when to stop, I know there are certain people that when they start drinking, they don't know how to stop. They don't know how to stop. Wrap it up? No. Oh, they don't know how to stop. They just start going. And if you're that type of person, then either designate a buddy for you who's going to be more sober than you and be like, you got to stop after X amount of time, or don't drink because it's not worth it. You're not if you go over there and you drink too much and you get wasted. Generally speaking, these people that are drinking to that level, I'm saying generally, it's not obviously the whole thing. They're not drinking for the right reasons. We're drinking to the reason, like we spoke before. Besides getting to that level of that everything is only God, you're drinking to become happy and to thank God and to really grow in your spirituality. Not to just, like the Shlosh says, just to fill up your stomachs with wine and alcohol so you can party, yeah, let's go, have some fun.
What do you do or say to your friends that you know that have that type of problems?
Say what you could say. It depends if they're going to listen or not. But you could try saying, listen, it says you're not doing a mitzvah. You're not doing some. You never know. You never know. Some people.
I have some friends that do that.
Yeah.
They can't control their liquor.
They can't, and that's a big problem for them. It's better not to drink, but they say, listen, hold it off. Like I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example.
Hold it off
when they're like, yeah, come on, more shots.
Yeah.
And meanwhile they're when I was I was. I don't say how much I should say this, but story. But I have a very close friend. If he's listening to this, he'll definitely know I'm talking about him. But back when I was in Israel, so we were drinking at one point in time, and we were taking, there were shots, whatever it was. It was a bunch of bachrim, having some good time, and it got so bad that my friend who was sitting right in front of me started foaming from his mouth.
Is that a what?
Foaming from his mouth, and he got pulled out on a stretcher, went to the hospital, got a stomach pump. Thank God he was alive still. But you have these people that they drink so much and they don't know how to stop. For them, they got to wake up. They got it's only going to be a certain amount of time when they're going to go too much. They're just going to go one step too much. Because again, you have an environment. Purim is an environment where everyone's drinking. Everyone's having a good time. And what happens if everyone's drinking? You're drinking also. You know you had too much, but then the guy's like, one more cup. Maybe like, okay. And you'll just take one more cup. And if you don't know, then you have to really, you have to either designate somebody, but you got to be really careful about these. Granted, yes, it is a mitzvah to do it, but if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. Better not to do it at all than mess it up. There's no mitzvah in getting yourself, and I'm talking about somebody who's going to be able to do mitzvot afterwards. If you're not able to do mitzvot afterwards, if you're going to be so inebriated that you're not going to be able to branch, you're not going to be able to pray, you're not going to be able to do anything, you're not going to, the whole thing, then there's no mitzvah. Don't do it. Don't do it. I want to finish off with one last, I wanted to get that part out. This way we went a little bit out of order. But I want to speak one last point on why we drink until we don't know the difference between blessed is Haman and cursed is Mordechai, or blessed is Mordechai, cursed is Haman. So there is a Gemara in Chulin, page 139. Ooh, it's late. Okay, 139b. That says like this. We'll finish in the next 3 minutes. So there was the Gemara goes like this. The Gemara says, where do we know Haman from the Torah? Where do we see Haman in the Torah? Because everything's in the Torah. Where do we know Haman? So the Gemara answers. It says in the pasuk in Bereshit in Genesis chapter 3 verse 11. It says Hamin ha'etz. It means Hamin ha'etz. The letters Hamin is Hey Mem Nun, and it's the same letters as Haman. And that is the secret to know about Haman is the secret of the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Now the same idea runs parallel in both stories. Adam, in the story of the tree of the Eitz Hadas, he had everything. He could do everything except for one thing. Don't eat from one tree. Don't eat from one tree, everything else you got. Haman, in the story of Purim, he had everything. He had literally everything except for one thing he didn't have. Mordechai did not want to bow down to him. So you see both parallel. Where did their downfall come? But they both chased the things that they couldn't have. They both took something they couldn't have. That's what their downfall was. Now, there's one opinion that what was the actual tree? The actual tree in the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge, was grapes. It was actually grapes. And Achashverosh, his party, was wine. Was also the same idea, was grapes. So the sin of Adam was wine. The sin of Achashverosh was wine. So now what we're doing is we're fixing all that thing with the drinking again. Now, what happened when Adam drank from the tree? He knew it's right. It's Etz Hadas. It's a tree of knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of good and bad. Etz Hadas Tov V'Ra. It's a tree of knowledge between good and bad. So now he has an extra perception of between good and bad. So what we're doing when we're drinking is we're trying to bring ourselves before the sin, prior to the sin. You know why we do that? So we keep on drinking. We drink to the level that we don't know the difference between good and bad. Blessed Haman, curses Mordechai. We're going prior to the sin. That's why we're drinking to that level. Now we're drinking to the level that we actually want to. We're drinking to the level that we're backdating before the sin of Adam HaRishon. Before the sin, and that's why we bring us to this completely holy level. I want to finish off with one important note is that the story of Purim is an amazing story. It really is unbelievable what the Jews went through and where we were, how successful we were. It really is a time of celebration. It really is a time of happiness, a time of true joy, a true happiness. And unfortunately, because of this, because it has so much potential, Purim, that it gets people take it to the bad extreme. You have so much potential for holiness on this day. You could get so close to God on a day like this. When you're a little bit tipsy, you could get so much closer to God because you have you just like let it go, and everything is you have so much, especially if you're in a good environment. By all means, if there's any mixed Purim parties, you're not allowed to go to those things. There are people I remember years ago. They make mixed Purim parties in like clubs and like things. I'm like, that's not a Purim. That's exactly what we're not allowed to do, and we're not supposed to do on Purim. That's exactly what got us into the problem in the first place. So we obviously have to make sure if we're going to a Purim party, we're going to that, we make sure it's a kosher Purim party, a place that you're able to actually grow spiritually. There's so many places that you could go to and on this day that could ruin you. It could ruin you. Everything has potential on both ends of the spectrum. So we have to be very, very careful. Comes Purim. We have to know that we have tremendous, tremendous potential on this day. It is a crazy day. You could ask for anything you want from God on that day. Such a strong, on Purim, such a strong day for prayer. Such a strong day for like Yom Kippurim is Yom like Purim. Purim is the highest of the highest. You could get so high on Purim. Well, both ways. You could get you could literally get so spiritual on this day. Make sure you do it right. Make sure you do it smart. Don't mess it up. And everybody should have an amazing, most successful, most spiritually uplifting, the happiest possible Purim that they could possibly have, and only grow from it, and only be the healthiest, the smartest, and the safest.